And then came Stupid Cupid. Now, that's a big change from these other ones.
Okay, now, Stupid Cupid. But I knew that, well, anyway, there wasn't a rock and roll hit before that by any girl except maybe Laverne Baker, and that was Rhythm and Blues.
Not by a white female star?
Not by a white female star. In my show, from 1957 on, I was doing I'm Walking. I was doing I Hear You Knocking, like a rock and roll song.
Uh-huh.
I was doing a lot of the Fats Dominoes and Ray Charles, Hallelujah, I Just Love Him So. I was doing those in my show in 56 and 57. So that doing rock and roll, and that was because of Bobby Darin. Mm-hmm. Because when I met Bobby in 56, he was such a fanatic that we used to go to to see James Brown at the Apollo. I mean, I was really a rhythm and blues freak through Bobby Darin. So the idea of doing, now I knew that there was no way I could ever sound like Laverne Baker. So what I decided to do, it didn't happen that way. It happened with the song first. I knew that I had to come up with a smash hit record. I knew I had to come up with a hit record.
It was crucial on this third one.
That third record. So I had listened to every publisher's songs in New York. Nothing was hitting me. I said, why don't we do another standard, a rock and roll standard? I mean, another standard, Daddy, and put triplets behind it. No. Think of something else. So now, Donnie Kirshner, who was a broken-down singer, he had an office with a broken chair and a desk in it, and we were friends since he was captain of the Uppsala college basketball team through Donnie Kirshner. So Donnie brings me over. Now, I'm a big star to these kids, but I'm still living in this impoverished house yet. We hadn't had time to move yet, you know, and this is 58, and we were like in this shack. So he said, Connie, I got two songwriters for you. One of them is an errand boy, but he's a gopher at a music publishing company. The other one's a Juilliard student. He said, these kids are the best. I said, all right, Donnie, okay. At the Chantre Beauty Salon. So I was like an hour late, and it was like a hot day, and they came to my house, and Neil looked around the house, and he nudged Howie with his elbow, and I said, what were you expecting, Tara? I mean, there were no carpets on the floor. There were exposed radiators. It was hysterical. So now they started playing this music, and this was like 4 in the afternoon. By 8 o'clock, Donnie Kirshner left. I was getting very tired of listening to this great music, but it was too educated because Bobby said, Connie, drop the G when you sing ing words. He would tell me these things. Mm-hmm. He would say, sound like Fats D, don't sound like Eddie Fisher. So so I had that great feel for this music through Bobby, but I knew I couldn't ever attempt to duplicate it. If I couldn't do something the best, I didn't want to do it at all. So at any rate, I'm listening, and Donnie finally left, and I'm lying on my sofa, so bored, listening to this gorgeous. Every song they played, I said, it's gorgeous. What else have you got? Finally, after like 97 hours, I was writing in my diary. I was falling asleep. I'm writing in my diary, and Neil said, oh, can I take a look at your diary? I said, please, Neil, nobody looks at my diary. It's in shorthand, but certain words aren't. No. I said, go ahead, play something else. So I said, look, fellas, I hate to tell you this. I mean, don't get me wrong. Your music is beautiful, but it's too educated. The kids don't dig this kind of stuff anymore. I said, he said, you guys are putting me to sleep. I said, don't you have something, like a little more lively? So Howie whispers in Neil's ear. He said, Neil, play her the song we just gave to the Shepherd Sisters. And horrified Neil, he whispered back, what are you, crazy? Howie, she's a classy singer. She'll be insulted. So Howie, he persisted, Neil, listen, what have we got to lose? She hates everything we wrote. Doesn't she? Play it already. So Neil played 12, 4 lines, 8 lines of Stupid Cupid, and I started jumping up and down, and I said, that's it, you guys got my next record, Stupid Cupid, what a smash. It was a hit title. There was no way if the song were bad.
Absolutely right.
It was a hit title.
Absolutely right.
There are such things as hit titles.
That's right.
Now, when Vacation was brought to me, they brought me Vacation in the summer sun. That was all they wrote. The rest of the words, I wrote all the rest of the words. But I didn't even take credit for it. But what I'm saying was that it was a hit title. Now, the song had to really be awful for it not to make it. So we would have meetings like Howie and Neil and myself, and we were all very young and creative, and Bobby, and I would say, look at these songs, and I made a list of every song that was a hit on the hit parade since the beginning of time. I have a book that dates back to 1940 with every 100 songs of every year. Look at the songs that have become hits because they're names of places. By the time I get to Phoenix or whatever it was, or Kansas City, or I left my heart in San Francisco, and the names of people. Look at the names of people, how many hits.
Sure.
If you pick, now I already picked out Lipstick on Your Collar immediately within 8 bars. I knew Lipstick on Your Collar was the #1 song immediately. Now, it was a top 10 song without a doubt. So now Howie and Neil and I, we have a meeting. What are we going to put on the other side? So he said, what, do you expect, a double-sided hit? I said, yes. You can have a double-sided hit. So he said, what do you want us to write? He said, I said, a ballad, because the other side's up-tempo. So they said, well, what do you want? I said, I want the name of a person. I said, look at these names. I said, every time you write the name of a person, it's a hit. So they said, oh, we know. She just wants to sing about Bobby, meaning Bobby Darin. I said, don't get cute, Neil. No, it's not about Bobby. I'm going to sing Frankie. Why? I said, because Frankie Avalon is the #1, America's #1 teenage idol. And so I'm going to sing this song, Frankie. So now you got to write the song. So they said, happy or sad? I said, always sad. How will you know that? Teenage girls love to cry. Always sad. So, so that's how we would, come up with these different ideas. And so that's how they wrote Frankie, which was huge in like the New York area. That was bigger than Lipstick on Your Collar.
They were both enormous. Well, back to Stupid Cupid. Now Neil had that on his first LP, but I assume that at the time of this meeting that you're talking about, he hadn't recorded
Neil hadn't recorded. Now, as a matter of fact, Neil had a recording contract with RCA Victor for a year. They couldn't come up with a song. Now, that night when he and Howie went home, Neil, on the way back to Brooklyn, wrote, oh, how I'd like to look into that little book, the one that has the lock and key, because he had seen me writing in my diary.
So your diary actually inspired his first hit.
He went home that night and wrote the diary with Howie.
On the next single, someone took Bobby's advice, and instead of falling, you had fallen.
Right.
You got rid of the G.
Right, exactly. And I called Bobby, and I said, what do you think of the test pressing? What do you think of the song? He said, you're imitating Bobby Darin. He said, you didn't make that mistake on Stupid Cupid. You were yourself. You were Connie Francis. He said, now you're imitating Bobby Darin. He said, and it's not going to make it. It ain't going to be no top 10 hit. But the lyrics were too sexy. They didn't buy sex. They bought the girl next door.